It says write the equation, the polynomial in line number 2. Don't forget you can change the a value. All right, so in this case, we are going to look at the x-intercepts, and we could see that on this graph, we have a bounce at -5, 0, and then a pass at 8, 0. So we're going to write that equation down first. So f of x is equal to, we said a bounce at x plus 5. So we're going to square that. And then we have a pass at the point 8, 0, so times x minus 8. Okay, so as you can see, the graph doesn't fully match the blue graph. So we need to find the a value. Now we could guess and check and start putting in values for a right here. For example, if I put in a 2, I could see this green graph is getting a little steeper, so maybe I need to go a little bit smaller. So if I went 0.1, I could see the graph is going wider, but I somehow need to flip it. So maybe I need to put a negative, and if I put a negative, I see that I flip the graph. But instead of doing a trial and error, what we could do is just take this equation, and instead of putting trial and error of numbers, we could put the letter A, and we could try to solve for this equation by choosing any point on the graph. Now, when we go along this graph, I can see that there is a point on this graph that is 0, 2. So let's go ahead and see what we can do by plugging in the point 0, 2. So looking at the equation of the graph, I have chosen a point on the graph which is 0, 2 right here. So recall that 0, 2, this is my x value, and this is my y value. Remember, f of x represents y. So if I substitute 2 for y, I can rewrite this equation as 2 equals, plug in 0 for x, plus 5, and we do have an a value here. I forgot to put that. So I will put my a value squared times 0 minus 8. So 2 is equal to some letter a, which is going to determine how wide and steep my graph is and whether it faces up or down. And then I plug in the x value, which is 0, and I'm going to just simplify this equation. So simplifying this equation, we get that 2 is equal to a times 5 squared times -8. And if I further simplify, 5 squared is 25. So 2 equals to a times 25 times -8. And if I enter 25 times -8, you can do that by hand or on a calculator, however you wish. So what is 25 times 8? So let's take a look. 25 times -8 is -200. So 2 equals to -200 times my a. Divide the -200. And I get that a is equal to over -200. And that, of course, simplifies to -1 over 100. So this is our a value. And you can either write it as a fraction or as a decimal. As a decimal, that will equal -0.01. So whichever one you choose is fine. Let's go back to the graph and enter this a value and see if it overlaps. So looking at the graph, my a value as we got was -1 over 100. And in fact, the green and the blue match, so we have matched it correctly.